Back on HQ where it's bear down and up. On the tail end of this Thursday night contest, they do possess that Panthers pick, and with their 8th loss, the Panthers pick moves to #1 overall, tied with the Cardinals at 1-8. But Breaker goes the way of the Panthers. Cardinals yet to play, and getting their franchise quarterback back this week in the form of Kyler Murray. The Bears' own pick, well, that gets a little bit worse with their 3rd victory of the season. Joe Musso, Emery Hunt back in the mix, and we welcome in our draft expert, Ryan Wilson, for his thoughts on the tail end of this battle at the bottom. Ryan, just plainly put here, this result implies what we expect to see in April. How?
I think it puts us on a path to sort of figure out what's going to happen over the once we get to April, because this is exactly what it feels like it's going to look like, right? These football teams are not very good. You and Emery and Tyler talked about that just a moment ago, about how it was a good game tonight, but in reality, and when taken in the context of the other 30 teams, these teams have not been very competitive for different reasons. So I think going forward, this is a victory for the Bears for obvious reasons in the W column tonight, but also because instead of having the 2nd and 3rd pick, which was the case going into the game tonight, now, as you know, Joe, they have the #1 pick and the #5 pick, and that's best case scenario if you have a quarterback in mind at the top of the draft you'd like to take, or if you're interested in entertaining offers at the top of the draft like they did a year ago. And the difference is this. A year ago, there was some conversation about who the #1 quarterback was in Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. If Caleb Williams had come out a year ago, and I've had a couple teams tell me this, he would have been the #1 overall pick. So the price of poker is going to go up if you're interested in moving down off this pick if you're the Bears. Otherwise, you take your dude there. Now, Drake May is going to be in this conversation, and that's been a talking point over the course of the fall. And, you know, people have been upset with the way that Caleb's played at the Notre Dame game. But here's the thing, and I'm just going to say it like this. If you've watched Caleb play every single snap, and I have had to do that for the First Pick podcast, he has had 2 bad quarters. The rest of the time, he has dragged this team that doesn't have much of an offensive line or a defense into the end zone time and time again. So those will be the talking points as we get through the process. But I think if you're the Bears, you're in great position. You're excited about the 1st pick if it's a quarterback. You're excited about the 5th pick because you can circle back around. Marvin Harrison Jr. won't be there, unfortunately, for you, Joe, but you can get an offensive tackle. You plug in right away, and it'll start on day 1.
And, Emery, it's an interesting circumstance when you're talking about a 1st overall pick. We just watched the struggles of one who doesn't have much around him. If this is Caleb Williams going to the Bears, they're much further along in the process here with the defense coming together and offensive line in front of them. But as you took in this contest tonight, the first thing that came to mind when you're looking at the future of the Bears is what?
When Justin Fields gets back, they have a lot of ammo to make this team a tremendous team moving forward, significantly better. You don't give up on someone that runs 4.3, can throw the football a country mile, and has shown the toughness that makes the Windy City faithful proud. So for the Bears, this is a win because now you can move down in the draft. You have the 5th pick, but you control the draft because that #1 pick, you figure the Panthers will have to compete with the Giants in terms of that #1 overall pick, because I feel like the Patriots will find a way to Patriot way themselves to a couple of wins. But in my opinion, you don't need a quarterback if you're Chicago. You need another big dog at wide receiver. You need another defensive end outside of Montez Sweat. This is a draft that has Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Coleman. You have Montez Sweat that you already have in tow, Chop Robinson, Layata Latu from UCLA, Jared Verse. So this is a chance for you to get better on your football team with an explosive talent coming back at quarterback. However, this is a quarterback-driven league. We know someone will want Caleb Williams and will give you King's ransom to help fill out the rest of those spots on your roster, whether that's offensive line, maybe defensive tackle, maybe another corner or a safety. But you can get rich by playing things out like we've seen it so far this evening.
We will get to that handsome ransom in a moment, but Ryan, as I sort of turn it to you, excitement and execution are 2 different things, and as someone who has rooted for the Charter franchise since the day he started walking this earth, it's only been excitement with Justin Fields. We've seen the execution in moments, and we also watched them some years ago pass up on a generational talent in Patrick Mahomes. Yes, not everybody knew. But is there a world in which they are sitting 1-1 and they do not take Caleb Williams for some reason or another?
Joe, I know we're in a bit of a delay, but I'm going to do a little Q&A with you to answer your question here. So last April, The Bears had the first overall pick. They traded down, got DJ Moore. They traded down from number 9 when they could have had Jalen Carter. They took Darnell Wright. They got Tyreek Stevenson, all players who contributing. Is this Bears team today better than the one that you followed a year ago?
Far better. Statistically, from a run defense standpoint, on pace to be the best yards per game allowed improvement since 1974.
Okay, if that's the case, if you feel that way, then I think you're probably leaning towards what Emery's selling in terms of going with Justin Fields, and I understand that. Don't get me wrong. The other issue is if that's the path you're going to go down, because you're going to get a ransom, as Emery noted. It'll be bigger than the ransom you got to allow the Carolina Panthers to move up for Bryce Young. The other issue is now Justin Fields is going into year 4 next year, and then you have to decide the 5th-year option this year. So you're going to be tied up in a lot of money with a quarterback you better be sure is your guy. While, as you note, maybe Patrick Mahomes, 65% of Patrick Mahomes, you're passing on in Caleb Williams and or Drake May, and the fan base pushing back, and all the other sort of ancillary things you have to deal with. So that's going to be the problem for Ryan Poles and or Matt Eberflus as they try to figure this thing out. But as you note, and you're a lifelong Bears fan, there is some improvement that we've seen. Is it enough to merit passing on what you may think is a special quarterback talent in Caleb Williams, or if your guy's Drake May, Drake May?
More specifically, I would identify that as team improvement, not necessarily Justin Fields improvement, which is something all Bears fans are hoping to see here from now until the finish line. On the open market, with that quarterback and the demand that this league currently has, Ryan, what is 1-1 worth?
It's going to be more than last year. And last year, quickly, they got DJ Moore, the wide receiver, who's their best wide receiver right now. They got the number 9 overall pick. They got a second-round pick from last year's draft class, a 2024 first, 4th, and second-round pick. It will be more than that. And if you can't fix your team with back-to-back years trading out the number 1 overall pick, there is no hope for you as a franchise. You should be relegated to semi-pro football. So it's going to be, as Emery, his phrase, a king's ransom. But you have to be sure, because as Emery also noted, this is a quarterback-driven league. And the ghost of Mitch Trubisky, fair or not, is looming over this organization. And you do not want to miss on Patrick Mahomes 2.0, whatever that version may look like, if it's going to improve your football team and if you are not sure that Justin Fields is your guy. Now, we have heard no indication where the Bears are on Justin Fields, other than they brought him back, because we were talking about it last draft season. Other than that, he's got to get healthy and he's got to play well and show some improvement. And then we can have the conversation. But whatever happens, if it's in the we're keeping Justin Fields conversation, they are going to get way more than they got last year, and that team has to be better. There can be no more excuses if they trade out of that pick, and they have to be in the playoff conversation from day 1 in 2024.
There's a couple of things in play here, and I'm glad Ryan touched on it, because you're at a point now where the Bears are improving, and if they're improving and we have the number 1 overall pick, we're not focused on future lottery tickets. I want players. Give me 2 of your best players that can help fill a need right now. Or if you're a team that we're not talking about, we're thinking in terms of the Giants, we're thinking in terms of the Patriots right now, teams that are picking in the top 3, top 5. What if it's a team that's in the 20s that may need a quarterback, i.e., let's say the Pittsburgh Steelers? Now, do you take that king's ransom from Pittsburgh, maybe a defensive player that they have abundance of, and give them Justin Fields and allow them to move up? So there's a lot to go into play here. And the biggest question for Fields is not his talent, is not his skill set. He has to stay healthy. And that is the one wild card. We saw this early in Matt Stafford's career. He kept hurting his shoulder. Can he stay healthy? The Lions stuck with him, and it worked out for them in the end. But he has to be able to stay healthy. I need to be able to count on you, and you need to be available in order for me to build with you. So that's going to be the question. If he comes back ready to go and plays lights out, then the question answers itself. But if you're Chicago and you have a situation where you have a team that's not in the same conference, the NFC, that's in the AFC, that's willing to give you players and also unload a young quarterback off your hands, then you take that deal. But otherwise, you stay pat, continue to build, and make the team consistently better. Because as we're talking about Caleb Williams, and I think he's as good as Patrick Mahomes was coming out of Texas Tech. He was my number 1 quarterback in that draft class. This is someone that you don't want to pass up on, but you also know that he can help you win. But we just watched the number 1 overall pick tonight that we thought was ready to go, that struggled right out of the gate. We saw with Trevor Lawrence. So it may not be all, cupcakes and roses right out of the gate. So we have to see. But this is a unique situation Chicago finds themselves in.
A lot of angles to come at this conversation from, a lot of levers for Ryan Poles to pull, but the biggest one will likely be answered in the weeks to come through the play of Justin Fields. Gentlemen, appreciate the conversation as always. And that conversation continues in depth with a man who's made picks and a man who chews tape. With the first pick, the premier pod in draft analysis, getting you ready for April right now. Download, subscribe, and enjoy With the First Pick.